EST Finance and Government Committee on order. Supervisor Slocum.
What?
Okay.
What'd you say?
Calling to order. I know I was calling your name.
That's fine. Oh,
Here?
here.
Rico Medina. Reed Swan. Present. Glenn Sylvester. And Celia Taylor here. All present, or for present, when you see.
Oh, we have also John Pruitt.
I didn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry, John from that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
better. He's a quiet one.
He's very.
For now.
Wait a minute. That's. Okay, so. I know it's not. A quick announcement, Rico and Marie need to leave a little early to go
Yes,
to
we have
the
a little bit
interview
short. Yeah, hard stop at 3.
with San Francisco. I think it
Yes,
was. Yeah,
yes.
so good luck. Thank you. You're doing the Lord's work over there.
We are.
We will have a motion to approve the agenda. So moved.
Second.
All approved,
Aye. Yes.
and nays?
Okay, moving on to item 3, approval of the minutes from
January.
January.
None,
None,
None.
no minutes.
no minutes, there will be.
Is there a motion? Oh, there's no motion. All right, very good. Why aren't there minutes?
We're gonna take,
Okay, very good. Move on to item number 4, which is public comment. I don't know if anybody is out there.
Anyone may speak up for 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda. The council may not discuss or act on items on the agenda. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand and I'll call on you when it's your turn. Just one.
a
Here. There you
All right. Hearing none.
go. Okay, item number 5 will be the director's report.
Yes.
Don?
Obviously, as you know, not taking any action, this is kind of an update. Thank you all for being in the meeting today. This is our finance committee agenda redesign and mini meeting too. I provided all the members with a memo on that on April 11th. I hope you had the opportunity to review it. I first want to apologize for the last meeting. It was a poor performance on DEM's part. It was not the quality or standard that I expect from the department. I make no excuses for that, and we'll get the agenda together and we'll get the format together. DEM is asked to look at current agendas that were out there. We did do that to prepare for this meeting. I'll go into that a little bit later. Our intent right now is to post the minutes 24 hours to 48 hours after the meeting, video the following morning. This will both be the committee meeting and the council meeting itself in May. I'm the interim director. I want to create an organization that runs so smoothly that when the new director gets here, there's nothing for him to do. Okay, that's my goal, right? All right, and I work for the community and I work for the council, honestly. So if you don't like something, say something. You're not going to definitely hurt my feelings, all right? Normally in the director's thing, I would say something like this. We talk about the FEMA recovery thing and talking about that. But the Monterey North Peak radio site, which is a big deal for us, because if we lose that site, as you know, we'll lose communications to the coast sheriffs. We'll lose all this stuff. We're working on that very hard. I think we have a good handle on it, but that'll come through. We need to discuss ad hoc committees sometime, and we're looking at maybe increasing numbers 4 to 6. We'll talk more of that at the next meeting. And August 5th is the San Mateo County Project. So that is all I have for that report. Any questions?
I didn't catch the August 5th.
August 5th is the prep day for the county.
It's the
San Mateo County.
19th
Disaster
annual disaster preparedness day.
I recognize that.
I know.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay, moving on to item 6, presentation, agenda modifications and finance committee changes. I'm not sure how much you have to talk about that since you sent out a pretty thorough rundown.
It's up to the group. I can really go through really quickly. I've had a few
If you
stuff
don't,
points.
if you want.
Sure. The last meeting, we were not prepared, obviously. The redesign, we put out the new agenda. that came from some work that Adam did, I did. We've got some different examples of it. We got it from the Parks Department. We got it from behavioral health, because I was on the chair, I was the deputy chair on that one. And the one we liked was the one that Emma Gonzalez had from North Fair Oaks Council. And so we took that and we kind of hybrided it a little bit. We added some things that we thought we needed. And you'll see that, more to do with technical stuff at the beginning. And we wanted a clear picture of what was expected when there was an agenda item. The presentation of it, council comments, public comments, and finally, does it have to be voted on, yes or no? So that's all be answered. There should be no questions on how we're going to handle that. So as we move through this, we're also going to talk about the replacement part of the finance committee meeting. They will be the finance committee only, and the agenda will be set by the chair, the deputy chair, Rico, supervisor Rico, and then myself and Adam will be there along with the deputy director when we have one. So that's kind of how we intended to move through this faster, but the formal presentation will be given at the May 4th meeting because we voted on this issue in August, if you remember, to create this committee. So we have to kind of unwrap that a little bit.
And then I can just give a little bit of background on that. As you can see, we've converted these meetings after looking at sort of the formative documents for the finance committee. It's currently called the Finance and Administration Committee that you're a part of. After looking at those documents closely, we converted this to a Brown Act meeting because this is a standing meeting. One of the functions of the administration committee when it was not meeting as a Brown Act meeting was to sort of set the agenda. It's sort of atypical to have a public meeting to do the agenda setting. That's usually worked out probably on most of your councils between chairs and staff. And so that was sort of the animus to trying to say, maybe pull that part out of the Finance and Administration Committee, reduce it to a Finance Committee, and then have the informal processes for setting the agenda with the chairs and the relevant folks. So that was sort of the gist of how this came to be. Don's not asking for any, vote on that matter, just that's what's going to be presented and requested at the May 4th meeting. So, but this is obviously an opportunity for people to present feedback and comments and ask questions.
I guess the only thing I saw in the way of agenda setting, so to speak, was we had an opportunity to forecast, see what was coming and maybe present some ideas on how we might better present it, that it may be better received, more informative, things like that, not necessarily setting the agenda.
I think what John's referencing, if you don't mind, is like the budget, which is finance. And that is more detailed minutia. How much do we need? Don't we need? And I think that's what, John, you're referencing in that respect, right?
Yeah, so we'd get a forecast. We'd see the report here. And we say, oh, you know what, I think we need to give a little more information here, less information there to move things along, not necessarily deciding what should be on the agenda and shouldn't be on the agenda.
Yeah, it was kind of written that way too.
I'm just wondering out loud for the city council members. Now that it's a Brown Act meeting, I'm assuming that you all have a lot of other things to do, but this meeting time of 2 o'clock in the afternoon, does that work? Or should we change the time, or should we even have a conversation about does it really need to be a Brown Act? And
So
sure, Peter Cruz is on the line, but
I'll just, I'm okay with the chair and the vice chair work with the DM staff and then set the agenda. That's how CCAC does it. That's how some of the SEMCON does it. I mean, all the GPA that I'm on, that seems to be the format. And I don't mind that, the finance committee get together with, either the skill sets or the dig deeper into the minutia of, why the funding is reported that way and what needs to be changes or investment and whatnot. I mean, I'm fine with that. The only thing that I would make a comment on the agenda part is that if you're going to set this up, the attachment needs to specify which agenda items that you're talking about.
Okay.
that would be helpful for us to refer to. And then the recommendation, like this one, I think in particular, the first one, the six
Right,
presentation, the recommendation should be a sentence or two, just give us the instructions
Okay.
to, you want us to approve or disapprove or take action on it. So that is that would be my comments on that.
okay.
I agree with Marie. I just wanted to add something. I'm comfortable with the 2 p.m. time. I'm having challenges because of the number of committees, boards that I'm
Sure.
on, that every one of them is a Brown Act. So 2 o'clock for me works because it's a Brown Act. But if it's, the time is changed, it's likely I will not be able to participate.
So be it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and also I would, and you're probably aware, it just, once you settle the ongoing meetings,
Right,
send us in advance as the dates, because our dates get
Right.
taken the right away, and so it
We'll do that.
makes it difficult.
And just for, I'll speak for myself, but like how, for whatever reason, we needed to switch. So tonight should have been the standard meeting that's set,
yeah,
has been adopted.
Yep.
But now we'll move to next Thursday. Well, I know for me, I can't be there. And so because all of us have other obligations or commitments, we believe, that we have a city calendar to make sure that we don't overlap each other on other elements.
I got
So that's my belief is once we set whatever it is, it should be maintained.
okay,
And may I comment a few questions on the agenda,
sure,
the format of it?
yes,
One is on the public comments. It's stated that the clerk is going to read the statements. And my fear is that if there are too many statements, then literally you're asking the clerk to read every statement. I think that we're just, I mean, check with the legal counsel, but if there is, acknowledgement that it's going to be on public records anyway, and that we are all aware of it, I think that would be sufficient instead of just having the clerk read out the public comments at all times.
Are you talking about ones that come in like by email or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's how
And
we do it.
if
just
if
attach
they
it.
have sent in the correspondence, it should be attached to our packets anyway.
Okay.
And if not, it should be, a review on the website anyway. So having that sentence of the clerk is going to read out, that will be the expectation, and that's going to drag on the meeting. So that would be my.
the only thing with that is one came in that day, right? And we
Right.
announce it out and then send it out to you at that time, that did you receive, that's the only thing I put that in there. We can take it out,
Yeah, we get ours like at 4 o'clock on the day of a meeting, and if one's come between 4 and the meeting, we get it afterwards.
okay,
And the clerk reads that those that came in by this time were supplied to the council, all will be attached to the meeting
okay,
minutes.
okay.
Right, so maybe check with the legal on the,
That's-
on the language.
That's consistent with how the county does it too.
And it saves
That's
time
something
too,
we
because
do.
we've had it where they put it in the email, right? So it's already there, but then they speak under public comment, or they
Yes.
speak on the topic. It's like, okay, well, why didn't you just got 2 bites of the apple here. So that's another.
No, good feedback, thank you.
And then one more thing, and that is on each items, the actions. You spelled out that there's no actions at this time. So I would suggest that information only,
Okay,
you know.
whatever,
And then there's
used to that.
also the motion and actions on accepting the contract. Usually we said adopt and approve, and I don't know if, is this something that,
I don't know that,
Usually-
but
and the reason I said that
we
again.
copied that one, okay, to be honest with you.
No,
okay?
and so, again, I'm,
No, 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 no,
I'm
no.
fine either way,
It's
it
your-
just,
it's your place.
in terms of. All the board members are usually council members from the council, the C package usually
Sure.
is. I said, adopt and
We can
approve,
clean
and
the act.
so if
That's-
that
that's-
is something
That's-
that,
It's easy, that's an easy fix for it.
yep.
Is it necessary that we have an approval of the agenda once it goes there? Is that to rearrange things? I mean, I'm just trying to think of less votes, less time for everybody. I just,
Some do that, some don't.
yeah. I don't know. That's just a
We
general.
added those because honestly, we researched this, there's the difference in commissions and councils here. There's really no standard.
Right.
That is, you can pick it up and go, they're all the same, right?
Yeah, either way is legal.
Yeah.
But typically, frequently, you'll see an approval of the agenda, because sometimes folks will want to move items, reorder them, and then that agenda will be approved. But It's not required.
Whatever, okay, we can take it out if you want.
Yeah, I'm all for less.
Less and more.
Right, because, and then the other thing is, it also called for the vote, so that's another 5 minutes.
And usually the chair has, to my knowledge, being the mayor, the chair has the prerogative to say, I want to move, and unless my colleagues have a concern, then it's just done.
Perfect.
And that's the whole
Okay.
point of the chair and the vice chair meeting with the staff. Either reorg the structures or think that the presentation is not fully completed yet, it needs to be postponed or whatnot. Lastly,
Go ahead.
the last question is about the agenda comments page.
That was just for, what we were gonna do on that one, honestly, was that if we couldn't meet with the group, I was gonna send it out, right? And then you can comment on it, what you want, like the comments you made, right? That's why that was attached, in case,
Okay.
just to send feedback to us, that's all.
So I just want to make sure this is not
No,
part of the agenda.
no, well, we'll put the draft out, you have comments on it, we wanted a document that we can retrieve.
Thank you, Don. Thank you.
Don, in each of the agenda items, it says public comment limited to 2 minutes. Is that per person or 2 minutes total time
No, the
per
person.
person?
person.
Okay,
And this,
maybe I want to clarify that.
and I think at our last meeting, Warren, and you, I think you tried to rein it in very quickly. We had a person in particular that kept wanting to speak a few times. And really, to me, my opinion is it should be the staff presentation, questions from the board, right?
Right.
And then it's one time for the public, Warren, I think, and then that's kind of it.
And then
Right.
discussion by
And,
us.
yeah.
If we're all good with that.
We definitely are.
There is a distinction on B is questions or clarifying information. When we get public comment, they're clear on what the topic is. And under motion and action. Shouldn't D also include discussion? If B,
Honestly.
No, it's, so it's a presentation, then the board asks questions.
Right.
And then you go to the public for any kind of comments,
right,
then you bring it back to the board for discussions.
that's what I'm saying.
And that's when, if there's no discussion, that's when the chair asks for motion.
But see, it doesn't, I guess in here, it says presentation, questions from council, public comment, and then a motion. So it doesn't really give a spot for council discussion,
Maybe we can just.
discussion and or, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, Marie, you're on a roll.
I didn't make my note.
I feel like I'm not necessary.
The only thing I have.
Fine.
Good.
Okay, it's on tape too. I'm just like, thank you, Warren. It's just on 9, the director's report for
Yes.
designated staff. Is that just in particular for this this agenda? Or is it something that is going to be standing?
No, it'll kind of be a standing thing we talked about, right, where I'm reporting out on what's going on, like the radio issues we're having and all the things that we've done. Like, we're still ongoing with the storms and stuff like that, just an update, that's what that's gonna be, very short, nothing to, no staff reports,
Okay.
right, just go
But
ahead.
I think what you're getting at is correct, is that in this particular instance, it contains more items because one of the functions of the Finance and Admin Committee
Yes,
is
eliminated,
looking at all the potential
okay,
Okay.
items. So it's more than it's going to typically be. There's not going to be, 8 different presentations that the
No.
directors report out. Those will be part of separately agendized items.
right,
Okay.
I think. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
you're
and
hinting at.
that, because 10 minutes for 8 items.
Yeah.
There's no way. Each person would just get in the minutes and then you have the board. And so, and I sort of going back to what Warren says about the August 5th. That needs to be properly titled, which is, it is the annual disaster preparedness
Right.
day. So that is clear on everybody's
No,
mind, and
you're
that's what the discussion is, and it's not something different than just the date.
Mhm.
And then it's the same thing with the council person Schneider ad hoc. That's also kind of hard to quantify as to what that is.
I-
So
I'm trying
in
to figure
terms
that out.
of.
And I mean that with all respect, because.
I-
you know, the
No,
idea-
I
yeah,
know.
The idea is that, and I mentioned that, we should have some kind of ad hoc discussion on what is an ad hoc, what is not an ad hoc. Who can belong to it, who can't belong to it, how long does it last? And definitely meet with the person before, so we know what the parameters are, right? That's kind of.
And I would, I don't know, Warren, you were gonna say something?
You go ahead, Rico.
Thank you, sir. I saw this kind of evolving on the spot. Which I think things just at the moment evolving are not always,
No.
they're well intended, but not good results.
Sure.
And before you knew it, we had members of the body, we
Right,
had
yeah.
public,
all
we
of
had
it.
everything being, and I had no idea where we were going with this, the parameters. My concern personally, as a mayor or as on this as a vice, is staff bandwidth. And what they have,
Well,
and if every one of us came up with something that's important to us
I
or
got
our
it.
community, I think all things would not be given justice.
I agree, but I did, one of the things you do have is you have a reserve that you can hire a consultant for also, and we would come back with that. Honestly, if we had time, after we discussed it, we could say, hey, maybe there's something you want to study further, that would be it, and this is what we did. But I agree.
But I think Don is probably so happy to hear that though folks will be reining in ad hoc committees that sort of occur to
Yeah.
people on the spot because they obviously have limited bandwidth. And so that's
There should be a report.
music
that
to his
comes-
ears.
A report that comes forward that talks about what is it gonna do, what kind of staff time is required.
No, we can do that, that's why I said we have to define it, I mean,
Yeah.
now, if we get that direction, we will definitely come back with, hey, the 2 meetings and 3 meetings, how much staff time it's gonna take,
What's the outcome that you're trying to accomplish? I mean, all that stuff is important.
agree?
Okay. Well, as a new chair, let me just be brutally honest and say. Sometimes when I read this stuff that comes to my inbox, I just get totally confused. There are 5 attachments. It just seems to me that if we could get to operate more like a city council or a county, that and how those staff reports are communicated and how they appear, at least I'd be less confused. Just as an example, I don't know why this agenda document was included, and you probably had good reason.
Yeah, I wanted to show you an example of what it could look like, right?
Yeah,
I didn't wanna say, oh, this is what we're doing, because it's not my idea, it's your guys, right? That's why.
but I guess I'm just a little bit confused about things, the budget, and how these meetings operate. So I guess my overarching goal is to model it more after a city council meeting and tighten it up, cut down on the time, cut down on the materials, which will make Rosalinda's job a little easier, I would think, and your job a little easier. So I think we're on that path, but that's where I'd like to get to, and
Okay,
I,
there was. The previous paths were done for years and years and years, okay? No one really wanted to take it over, and nobody wanted to participate, that was some of the problems we were running into. I'll be honest with you, Dan struggled to get people to the meetings. So I'm glad we're on this right track, we'll clean it up and get it done right.
And Warren, there used to be in the old days that it was verbatim minutes. I mean,
Yes,
every
it
word you
was,
said,
every
and that's why I was
word.
afraid to talk. Because if I said the wrong word, it's in the minutes.
It would take, it would take 60 hours sometimes. to
Yes.
do that stuff.
So we went to action minutes like
Yeah,
council
that's a good-
because that's not, it was a wait, I wouldn't say waste, that's the wrong word. It was not a
Time consuming.
efficient use of staff's time.
It's also recorded.
yeah,
Yeah, it was recorded.
that's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's like, anyway.
The other thing that I think would help when you're talking about going similar to council meetings is trying to move between documents and trying to organize the stuff in preparation for a meeting. I don't know how, it's hard for me, but I know it's not hard for people to know what they're doing. If we had, our packet comes as one file.
Right.
You have the agenda and all the stuff is
Right.
just cascaded through there. Would make it easier to track and keep track of.
Yeah, that would help me confuse it, I think.
I think another comment that I have is that it'll help the public if if government's agendas are consistent.
Okay,
I think it'd be really helpful. And I do have a question on
Sure.
item D on number 9. In the FEMA disaster recovery update.
right,
Does that include any information about how many people?
Yeah,
In
that-
San Mateo County
exactly, yeah.
applied for?
we have the numbers that people applied for, how many? For instance, we put out, I think it was 411 to FEMA, they came back with, I found 1,069 folks. We have the numbers actually that went to the DRC, the money that was given out by FEMA, and the number of clients they contact. So we have that information, but that was one of the things that, again, as Adam said, we have 8 things there, what is important and what is not important to you, right? I just can put the stuff there for you to look at. You tell us if you're interested in that, we'll do that. You might not be interested in VOCI, but it's kind of an important thing for us. But that, we will go, I want to give you a menu to pick, from, right? Not just what I'm saying. So you have to figure out what's important to the council and what you want.
I'm not sure about that menu business.
That'll be part of the discussion, I think,
Yeah.
between the chair
Yeah.
and in the terms of the setting of the agenda.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you want us to say, hey, this is what we're gonna do, that's fine. I mean, but I would prefer you kind of guide it. Folks
Okay,
got
I
it.
understand that.
The other thing, Don, in some other groups that we sit on,
Mhm.
some of these director report topics might be considered information only items.
Yes, they
That are
can.
attachments, and were
Exactly.
not really discussed, but it's in the agenda packet.
Yep.
So
We can
maybe,
do that.
I mean, the first thing I think of is overview of them and new employees, depending on the.
That was an introduction to people, right?
Right. That
new-
might be a good attachment as opposed to an actual report. So, but it all depends, you can't necessarily make a decision, I can't, based on looking at these titles, which things would be an attachment and which would be a report, because that's something that I think the chairs would figure out when they know what the
Exactly.
content is.
Exactly. We can explain it to them when they say, no, we don't want to do the, raid, we don't care about that. Oh, we're interested in the FEMA stuff. We can then put some time on it, right? Because we're very short staffed, right now, right? So, and I have Rose and I have another person part-time as the admin stuff, so.
Yeah, so I think that'll help to tighten it up more.
So reducing some of the things to staff reports rather than in-person presentations.
Yeah, you just have a one pager maybe on something, hit the bullet points on something, get it done.
Anything else, Marie?
The last question is about the chair and the committees. You have the chair and the vice chair.
Right.
I'm assuming the chair and vice chair is communicating, so the chair, and then maybe a sort of public, the board members, if they have something to say, but keep it, again, the idea is that if the board members are looking at this, and this is 3 pages of just the agenda, not the attachment, less likely that they're gonna attend or focus on it. But if you keep it, succinct and, to Warren's point that, mimic it after the councils in terms of, I don't necessarily think that you need to talk about presentation questions and public comments and then the motion.
Yeah, but then I need to convey that to you folks on what's gonna be covered, right? And if there's an
Got it.
understanding of that, and
Right,
the format that we're gonna file, then it becomes easier for all of us.
right,
And so that's why I did that. In the initial memo I gave you, I did outline that.
Right.
And I said that would occur with each line. So I
right.
just wanted to let you look at it and
I
say,
see.
that's too much, okay?
Right,
Which was fine with me. But the idea is those questions need to be asked. And we'll fix the language about discussion and stuff like that at the end. But I wanted a document that we can go through and really look at it, say, this is what you want.
understood, yeah, and, yes.
Cecilia, did you have another question?
I did.
felt like you did.
Thank you. With FEMA, with the FEMA applications, or the recovery.
Sure.
What's coming back to me is that folks didn't have enough time. And I don't know if there's a 30-day window to apply, but there's just discovering damage to their homes. And and it's weeks after the storm. So I don't know where to send folks, and if that could be a part of it, if you still have issues, or is that all on?
Go ahead, Jeff.
So one of the problems is the entire FEMA disaster cost recovery model is based on the Midwest on tornadoes, where you have a single phenomenon which comes in, does devastating damage and is gone. And their whole model is based on that type of damage. a storm, particularly a storm like this, where we had a series of successive storms, doesn't really fit their model. So as they start to close out and as the presidential declaration expires, and as the governor's inclusion expires and all this takes place, it doesn't fit nicely to this model. And that's part of the problem why we did have these deadlines that were coming up.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we just on that topic, we had some issues with people not being able to fill out the forms. And so Thrive helped us with that, but we also put some money towards that next time, that we can put these classes on in multi-languages for people to, it was a lesson learned for us, right? And so, but we have money in our budget to kind of do that work.
Thank you.
Maureen, but when you were just talking about the line items, were you talking about having A, B, C, and D under each one unnecessarily lengthens the?
Right, yeah, and I think what Don is suggesting is that it just to show us
Yeah,
that is the sequencing of things, but going forward, you can always shorten it.
Maybe D is the only one you need in there. What is the desired outcome? All the rest, all of them are gonna have A, B, and C.
again, we took the model, somebody else.
No, understood.
And so you can make it whatever you want. I think you gotta kind of individualize it. Each council's got their own thing with it. And we'll make it look like whatever you want. You guys are all comfortable.
So like you're saying, you're putting it forward this time so everybody gets on the same page.
That's right.
So this is the training wheels.
It's kind of
And
like
then
what
at
it
the next
is.
meeting,
It might be the,
reviewing the agenda, we want to take training wheels off, then we do.
right, if you want to suggest something else,
Okay.
let's do it till we get it right.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, have you tried to reach out to Mullen or SU to try to address this problem that the vice mayor brings up? To try to, what about those people that are getting left behind?
We haven't gone to that length, but we did, I know that in a lot of the communities they went door to door. And some of them, they went out, they reached out to CBOs, nonprofits, they reached out to churches, asking if they had people who needed support.
No, I know, but the question is, should you have a conversation with Mullen and SU to try to address this problem?
Yeah, and sorry for jumping in, but and then to find out to the extent people can claim legitimately that they did not discover the damage, it was concealed or it was not available to them to get to until recently. Is there a way for them to request an
Yes.
exemption?
We-
And then could we
Call.
reach out to the public and say, there is a possibility of getting an exemption, here's what you would do, or put something on our website so that
Sure.
people can at least
Yes.
access that possibility. Maybe it's slim, maybe it's not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the items that we do want to bring up at the State Mutual Aid Regional Coordination Committee is the concept of, similar to the way the governor opens a blanket disaster
Oh,
of
that's right.
fire season that starts
It
in
doesn't
May and
close.
runs through October, that to propose that the same type of practice be used for the storm season, open it November 1st, keep it open through May. And that way, the window for discovery of damage would continue until the end of that proposal. This is something that Don and I discussed at length, and we drew it out on the board. And we said, let's propose it to the State's Mutual Aid Coordination Committee and see if they're willing to carry it on and bring it up to the governor.
That would really it fixes the problem a little bit,
Yes.
right? We do have FEMA people that we can call, and let us do some research there, and then we can go on to contacting those folks there, like see if they can help us with that.
And who would do that and by when?
Either actually it'd be Jeff or I who do it, and we can probably have it done by the next meeting. A verbal report out, that we made contact, is that, or do you want something in writing?
No.
No,
I'm good with verbal.
okay,
Thank you.
sure.
All right. Anybody else on agenda related matters?
No one wants, no.
Okay, so that brings us to, I think, item number 7, presentation and emergency services budget. And
Right,
Uncle Leach is there.
right there.
Hello. Supervisor Slocum, Don, Adam, and the rest of JPA. Today, I'll just give you a high-level overview of the budget. Can I first confirm that everyone received the budget handout? Okay,
With that,
No, there was more to it. There were just tables
No, it's
and-
in.
Are there multiple pages in there? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Can I have a copy?
It's all these-
I got it. I think.
so what we'll be talking about today again is an overview and a proposal. It won't be voted on, of course, today. And then I'll address any questions that come up. A few of you have reached out to me prior to this meeting with questions, and if you so desire, I can go through those, address those either in this meeting, or if you wish, I can address them also offline. So let me just start. The overall packet that was provided to you. This is the, what you have is the PowerPoint that normally gets presented at the meeting where we make the decision. So I believe this will be the May meeting, if that's correct. With the proposed budget, proposed use of reserves, and it also contains the estimated what we anticipate the fiscal year ending for the trust fund. The deeper detail, as we've always provided, is a 10-page in-depth budget, which documents what the budget looks like with reserves, the use of reserves, and what the budget looks like without reserves. So those are key pieces of information. The first 2 pages are usually our 10,000-foot view, so I'll start with those. The first page is called Emergency Services JPA 23-24 Summary of Charges, No Use of Reserves. That's page 1 of the document. The overall cost of this year's budget for 23-24 coming up will be $3,388,340,000. We normally split this with the cities. The county and cities split this with the city share without reserves being 1.574850, the county share being 1.527350. The use of reserves, last year we used 410,000 in reserves that came from the Emergency Services JPA Trust Fund. This year, unless the board elects to do so, we would keep that flat, that 410. Page 2 of the detailed budget handout is utilizing those 410 in reserves. And what that does is it supplements what cities would have to pay in, what county would have to pay in. And so reduces the overall cost by $410,000. That reduces the city's portion to 1.369850, the county's portion to 1.322350. There is a 3.5% increase this year over last year's budget. It's primarily due to staffing cost increases, both on the DEM side for the 4 staff positions and due to the San Mateo consolidated fire contract that will be that is being worked on with Chief Thrasher. Again, that 3.5% is strictly due to those staff cost increases.
Michael, can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
So on the first 2 pages, I guess. You know, when I look at it, it's a bunch of numbers.
Oh, yes.
And what story do I take away from this? It's the story using the reserves to offset everybody's cost. Or I'm not sure what this all tells me.
So the first page,
I'm supposed to look at every one of
Sure.
these.
No, it's a lot.
An $8,000 increase.
Usually supervisors, a memo that goes with this, right, Michael, that we put out.
Yeah, we do put out a memo with this. Here's how I, at a 10,000-foot view, is that what you see on the first two pages is what the cities and the county would pay with or without the use of the reserves. If the board chooses to authorize the reserves, we would use page 2. If they do not authorize any use of reserves, we would use page 1. And this basically, it is a lot of numbers, sir. It basically breaks out the cost per city agency. And it breaks out the cost to the county's DEM and to environmental health. And the detail that you see here may be viewed as a bit of overkill, but I think it's in an effort of transparency. Sometimes transparency creates more questions than it answers. But the effort here is for transparency, for people to review the numbers and sort of see what's under the hood.
I'm also curious, just FYI. So we spend, I don't know, 3.3 million, is that it?
Mhm.
What is it, what's that buying us?
So that so from the county perspective or from the city perspective, it's, I guess you could say, as the whole of San Mateo County, that's what this is servicing.
Right.
So Don can probably speak to this better than I can, but it's the San Mateo County or San Mateo Consolidated Fire Contract is about hazmat response.
Well, maybe I'm the only one that is stuck on that, so I'll, you know.
I think what Warren might be saying too is, it was a mission statement as an example. What is this getting us? What is it? Some of us know, but anybody else? They walk in as a new person and they're going, okay, so $3.3 million, half the county, the rest is divided by the agencies. So, and for what services? And I don't mean at a very high level, like it provides hazmat, it provides emergency responses and these type of, you know.
So I,
Is that what you were saying, thinking?
yes, here's my opinion, to be honest. I have sent memos trying to redefine how we do this. Okay, because I think it's too complicated even for me. All right. I understand why they have to do it for transparency, totally, right? But the idea is that how can a layperson look at it and understand it? Like, that is what I'm trying to drive down. There is a memo, which is good. I don't prepare those. It's done by finance, but I really didn't formally request one either. So we do have that, but again, it's pages of stuff. If you're looking for a single document page that outlines everything, I'm not an accountant, to be honest with you.
But I do think that there's something that we could do similar to what you're used to seeing in Measure K allocations and things like this, where we do a bar chart that shows, you know, $1 million to hazmat and maybe has some subsection that say that buys you this, this, and this, 500,000 to this. So we could do charts that show what you're buying and what you're getting for the money to a certain extent.
And we do that in our city budgets, right? When we have our general fund, we have the slices of the pie, public safety here, this, that. And it just gives a quick overview, I think. And again, it's not that we all don't know, but anybody who walks in new, and we've had some new folks this term, and the public as well.
So will you do that, Adam?
Yes.
And maybe a notations on, you know, this calculation of the, you know, city share, because each city's representative would zero in on their own
Yes,
share
of
of
course.
how much that was gonna cost them. Why is that much? And I think for the newbies, they may not understand that is by population and there's a certain formula to go with.
Sure.
So maybe just a notation of that would help.
That's probably makes sense, a slide that.
Yeah, because it's not one city's liked over the other in our town. It's just a matter that it's based on a population that's already exists.
Yeah, all that.
And that's interesting. That's on,
It is.
page 7 has how they break it down
Right.
by population and whatnot.
So one of the things real quick, kind of on the topic, is the January meeting should be the briefing meeting of the first meeting of the council. New people come in, they get this presentation from us, right? And it sets everybody on the same speed. We lighten the load on that agenda and everybody's there and we kind of review how things work. So that didn't happen obviously this year, but the storm caused some of that issue. Sure. You know, I think next year, I think that's the effort to go to more meetings too, is that we're not cramming everything down to 4. When I left you last time it was 5, but I don't know why they did away with it. Maybe we're doing more work than we did before, I don't know. But the idea is that on the January meeting, we outline everything for the new feed people, talk about what we do, talk about how the system works, and we do a presentation at that point outlining this. We can attach this as long as you have something very good explaining it. If somebody wants to look at these things, sure, John would like to look at these
John
things,
would.
right? John likes the stuff, okay?
John likes us.
He does like this stuff, right?
I was getting a headache earlier today trying to put things together.
John, wait a second, did you say there was a graph on page 7?
No, on page 7, it shows how the breakdown is by population.
But Don, do you have an onboarding for when we transition in January for those that have been newly appointed?
We, not now, we don't. And I think that's why that meeting, we used to give everybody handouts, right? I think it's more than a handout. Remember that? We just put them in the blue package. There you go. It was like, that's what we did. I think it needs to be more in depth. I think it needs to be a discussion of what the mission is, what we do, how we do it. You know, fire can talk about hazmat. We'll talk about the folks we work with.
And this could be done via Zoom. You don't need to meet everybody in person because it's not a standing committee, it's a one and done.
No, I'm talking about the council meeting.
It depends really, you know, if you had an onboarding where people came here,
Yeah, we can do
you got
that.
a chance to see what does the rock do? How is it laid out?
Why do they call it the rock?
They get
Yeah.
a much better understanding of
Sure.
how we work and how prepared we are for the things that we're
But
covering.
that would be like the first meeting, you know, type of thing for them, right?
I think you can actually do that outside of.
Outside of a meeting.
Yeah,
So we could do that
training, right?
orientation to the
Yeah.
committee.
We can do that.
What was my onboarding like?
Yeah.
You're still doing it.
It's 3. Third to 2.
Still into it.
I want to be respectful of staff, Adam, but I can't help myself. You know, all these things take time and energy, and he said earlier he was understaffed and I don't know, halftime this, and I still don't understand all that. But couldn't you give him some seasonal help out of the coffers of the county manager's office and so we can get some of this stuff tightened
Adam, that's a
down?
great question.
There's only one right answer to that question. Yes, and it actually, I think what Don is, and I'm happy that although it's a little bit painful to go through this process.
Sure.
I'm happy that we're taking
Time.
time to do it. And that you've joined and, you know, brought some attention to making sure that this stuff is presented in a way where the interaction is meaningful and the minute that meetings are actually meaningful.
So just as an example, if I could give an example, I'm really curious, I'm really concerned about the earthquake that's coming. And what this organization is doing about that. And it seems like there would be some planning and document drafting, and that would affect the budget. And it takes resources to do that. And,
But
go ahead. I'll
no,
stop there.
the all hazard evacuation plan is gonna take that into consideration, right? But that's just the base, that's the stepping stone. We are gonna hire somebody to do that, because we just don't have the bandwidth to be honest with you.
I understand that.
And then we start working on building other things with that, right? But the idea is that probably not gonna be. Maybe when I won't be here, right? But at least I gave you a foundation to start from, right? And I think once you do that, then you'll understand where our weaknesses, where our strengths are, and how we move people around. That's.
And so the county will be bringing
Yeah.
two people into DEM.
That's true.
To work on earthquake preparedness starting in September. And that'll be their job. But I think the question that you're asking also goes to the initial orientation and that DEM is gonna have to do and the county's gonna have to do for everybody who's new to the project. So they can have a sense of all the different things that are in place to prepare, the all hazard mitigation, the evacuation, all these things.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of a lot of prep work is being done. There's still X, Y, and Z to do. But yeah, the county can certainly provide additional resources, and we have a lot of resources in finance and budget to help make sure that this is all presented in a way that.
Because Warren's absolutely correct. I think that's on everybody's mind. I can go back to San Bruno in 2010 when we had
Yeah.
the pipeline explosion. We had 400 firefighters, 200 police. It was a neighborhood destroyed, but we had resources from an earthquake will not have that ability. We will have to be self-sufficient. And I think people, and we're silly to think that it won't happen in our time. It could very easily. And I think that is something that are on people's minds.
So going back to Warren's comments too, what are we buying? And I think that is very helpful. And it's sort of the high level discussion, because we as a representative of our cities all have to go back to our cities and says, look, the budget is not working, to convince people that hazmat program that San Mateo Consolidated is offering is important, and it's really it's very economically sane for us as a city. That needs to be translated, because people need to be able to go back to their city council and articulate that. And so if we're talking about not using the reserve, or we're talking about what kind of reserve are we holding for this agency, we need to have a realistic understanding of what we are buying, how long are we talking about 6 months of operation that we can sustain the personnel for this, in order to have a understanding of the reserve. And then now we're going to say, well, we have more reserve. We can use that to supplement some of the payments for now. I mean, those are discussions that kind of summaries would help.
Some of that is static. I mean, what does the organization do? What are we getting for our money is pretty static.
Yep.
It's the same services. The costs change, and that's the part for me is when I'm looking through, I go to the right side column and I want to know the differences in the big ones. Why? And I remember I had a note in here that there was this ARPA contract for an emergency coordinator. I thought, I remember talking about this. We only have 4 meetings a year. I can't remember what the conversation was.
That's what I mean. That's
A
what you
little
have to
footnote.
know,
A little footnote that just says this is paid for by this money. It's a 3-year position or whatever it is. To understand some of those major differences, the little ones, $99, cost of doing business, right?
Right.
But when you've got something that changes, or isn't very well explained, management fee. Maybe a little explanation, what does the management fee cover? So some of those things would be static, would not change. Others would be helpful to just understand what these differences are. And those answer all the questions. That means you can come to a meeting to approve the budget with very few questions, because it's all there and you just approve it. I think those would be really helpful.
And Warren, I see that you have the deputy attorney there. His hand up.
Oh,
I don't know if
what's going on?
I don't know if we're in trouble or what.
No, not at all. In fact, I had kind of a non-legal thing to offer the group, especially in the spirit of trying to convey the importance of the work that you all are trying to do on behalf of the county. I know internally in my office, in the county attorney's office, John Niblin had circulated this upcoming training, the EOC section training. And I don't know if that's something that, the DEM, whether Don, we publicize that enough, either through the ESC or otherwise, but I attended the last trainings that you guys put on, and I found it real helpful, and it was kind of cool. I got a chance to work in a smaller breakout group with Michael, and it was fun to work with him. And so that was just something kind of that came to mind as something that we could publicize, especially for folks that are going to be participating in the ESC in the future, to participate in those kind of trainings.
We can do that. I mean, we send it out to the typical spot, law enforcement training, fire training, our internal folks. But if you're interested in that, we can push that out to you too.
Can I ask you, what time does this meeting, is it scheduled to end?
Well, we should go about an hour.
We usually go about an hour.
Yeah, we're there.
We're there.
We're there. We gotta get to the.
And I know the council people have to go here shortly. Okay, so.
Yeah.
What was that?
I don't know that the rest of the hazmat and the battalion chief or whatever aren't super labor intensive. for us.
Don't take that first.
No,
No, it's pretty clear cut. I mean,
Chief is like, oh, good.
I get paid. You wanna do those, chief, or you want me to do it? Oh, sure,
Well, wait,
do
before
whatever.
we do that. So what are we gonna do with the rest of this document here today? We're not gonna go through it, are we?
So you want,
Are we done with it?
Michael's not finished, I'm sure, because he's got more to go over. He hit some of the key points, but I think you wanna do a very high level view of this. Because you'll get this presentation again in May. Report.
Yeah, what Don's alluding to is the tradition of the January meeting as introductions. The April meeting was the introduction of the
Budget.
budget. The adoption of the budget was the June meeting, and then the September meeting was essentially the summary of the year leading into the following January. That was tradition for many
Then they
decades.
took a meeting out of that, so we wanna add a couple, I agree with that, it's less time, it's more, we're not jamming stuff in, but. Michael, you have any? Through the chair, excuse me, sorry.
I don't know, I just feel like. I don't think of myself as a disruptor. But. You know, 4 meetings seems to be inadequate. The tradition of onboarding clearly didn't work in my case, not sure, was I onboarded or did I miss that class? Seriously.
We met with you twice, you know,
Yeah,
that's,
met with me twice. Okay, so I was on board. Gotta go back to those notes. But I just think, just say it again, things need to be tightened up, made more precise, more understandable, more transparent, more responsive to the members. And to me, there should be a lot of excitement around this, and to say that we have 4 traditional meetings and it's this and it's that just doesn't create a lot of excitement in me, but I am excited about this topic and I want it to work going forward. And if Adam
I
gets,
like it.
huh?
I like it.
Yeah, well, okay. If Adam can get some help in here and I don't know, I'm just rambling, but it just, that's at a high level. Feel a lot of excitement to be here and I think we have to sort of reimagine what this all is. So,
No one's ever.
period. Hmm?
No one's ever taken time with it, to be honest with you.
Well, and I know you were saying.
Well, I got some good news and bad news.
I'm good with that. Yeah, listen, I'd rather have direction than none, right? It's hard to get people to participate, right?
And I'm just one, and maybe this is me for 2023 about, I don't want to meet to feel good.
I
I
got it.
want to meet because there's relevancy, there's need, and there's result. That's just how I believe it. And I think so, and now that we're all in person and having to make that commute, which before clicking was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
easy. I think we need to be mindful for staff, for my colleagues, because we do have a lot of obligations by choice. We signed up for this, and
I'll do whatever you want.
yeah, and I'm telling you, and I've been on since 2006. So I've seen an evolution and different chairs. And I think Warren having fresh set of eyes, I think is very helpful. And I think what you articulated, I think is. Sorry, Bob.
No problem. Okay, we'll go back to Michael, I guess. Michael, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, Supervisor. I guess the last comment would be just to reiterate that the next meeting that we'll have will basically be proposing the budget of 3.38 million. The anticipated reserve level at the end of this fiscal year, 22-23, will be 1.47 million. And the proposed budget is going to be utilizing 410 in reserves. That's pretty much what folks need to think about, whether they support that or not. There is an opportunity to use more reserves if people wish, if there's a specific reason for it or not a reason for it. But those are definitely some things to consider, just at a high level again.
Okay. I want to suggest, Michael and Don, that maybe all of us sit down with Robert Mankia the chief financial officer for the county, and take a look at this budget and these numbers and see what suggestions he might have for us in this regard.
That's fine.
You know, he presents the county budget and it's always precise, it's understandable, there's pictures for those of us.
I think the point here really is looking at charts and numbers isn't for everyone. And you said typically we will, and maybe at the next meeting we would
You have, we
have
can do it,
a
right?
written document narrative,
There's a narrative.
you know, a brief 1 or 2 page narrative that talks about what are we getting, what are we doing, what are the significant changes? How does the 410 make a difference? And maybe a quick explanation why. If people go and look at what their percentage difference is for a city, you'll see that every city is a little bit different. And it takes a minute to figure out that, well, some things are flat, some things are based on other things, so it's not going to be the same.
You know, there's a lot of minutia if you look at it. I can tell you that right now. I have numbers in my budget that are the same numbers from overtime, right? Because it's split, right? How do you get a sense of where the overtime is going by the way they take the money out? Some of that stuff needs to be corrected, right? Environmental health has part of the hazmat contract, when it really should be on our side, because technically it's their responsibility to negotiate, not ours, but we've done it traditionally. So this needs a lot of fixing.
So Adam, can you set up a meeting with Robert Menke and Michael, and the vice chair can make it maybe?
Yes, sir.
Be invited,
Absolutely.
down myself.
And I think the summary would help, the graphic would help, because people recharge differently. I do remember last year, it was painstakingly for Michael to break that, you know, take out those line items from the sheriff's accounting
It was,
to
it was brutal.
you know, the county manager's office. You know, so the line items are different, and so
Yep.
it did take a lot of time.
And we're still kind of playing with that too a little bit, you know, but it was brutal. I don't, I can say it, I don't know,
That's a
I
fair
don't know, Michael might have a better view of it than me, but I thought it was brutal.
We just need something, I think, that falls between the PowerPoint and the charts.
Okay.
Perfect.
You have to go?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll make sure we get there and logged in.
This is Zoom.
Yes, we were able to do this on a Zoom because it's an ad hoc.
Will we be able to meet by Zoom when we meet with Robert?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for the recommendations.
Thank you, thank you.
The primary evaluation. Thanks. Peter, is Michael done then?
Michael, you have anything?
I am done, sir. Yes.
All right, move on to item 8. This is a presentation of contract for hazmat services.
Mr. Supervisor and Board, thanks for letting me come in and speak today. I've been working with Don quite a bit, and I presented by Zoom to this group. And I forget when we met, went through a PowerPoint. I didn't plan on rehashing that PowerPoint. I was primarily coming in to answer any questions or, you know, try to respond to anything you guys might have about that contract. Don and I've been working on, like I said, it's not I think the big takeaway is that it's not a contract that we're looking to make money on. It's just to cover the cost of us providing that service. We've been doing it since 1984 and under contract for the last couple decades, just to cover the costs. As you know, like with everything else, the bulk of the costs are personnel costs. We pay an incentive to our hazmat specialists. We keep that number, try to keep it at least 30 on-duty hazmat specialists. Right now, we're at 34. The training and things that go along with that. Any of you that participated or saw the event yesterday, get just a slight glimpse of the amount of specialties that these folks have to be involved with. It's a pretty big undertaking. We're very proud of the product that we produce with DEM and with the county. We definitely don't want to lose that at all. So I'm primarily here to answer any questions or you know, I can go deeper if you'd like. I didn't plan on bringing the PowerPoint back up. Don and I spoke about it. I initially hit him up at you know, 5% a year for a 3-year contract. 5% each year was going to cover our costs. We looked at a CPI process and that, you know, maybe we do it based on CPI to give it some tangible numbers. We both decided that could be problematic and troublesome at figuring out what that CPI number was and who's going to do that and when are we going to do that and how are we going to apply it. So
We actually modeled it too.
right. And then while we were talking about that, we were able to, through the hard work of Battalion Chief Jeff Thorne, who's on with us right now, who manages that team for me. Jeff was able to procure some grants that he applied for. He applies constantly and got some grants that just over 200 grand that we can use to offset the costs that we had budgeted to cover some equipment over the next few years. So we were able to reduce that 5% down to 5 the first year, 4.5 and 4. So that's the number that Don and I were comfortable with, and I think that's what's on the table right now.
Sounds good to me.
It's a good number. We actually, on our side, Adam, we met with Michael and Bolander and talked about CPI, all that good stuff. It's easier, it's better. We know it's on the table every year. That's kind of why we came to it.
Any questions?
I have a question, and with the life sciences district, because that's probably the largest increase in development in most cities. So how does that play a factor?
It plays a factor. So most of our life science businesses are large enough that they have a lot of their own response capability. And they're so regulated that they do a lot of covering things that would typically be a call for us. They can take care of them on their own. And there's not a lot of need because they are very cautious and they cover things. With that, we do respond quite a bit, and we've listed as one of our most significant challenges moving forward is the enormous increase in life sciences throughout the entire county, not just Menlo, but all up and down. We have life sciences popping up everywhere. So it is a challenge. We think we're set up for it. We're doing a lot more training now that looks at something as simple as when we respond to a call, we almost always respond at ground level. Well, these life science buildings are now high rises. So how do we do a hazmat at the 10th floor? How do we decon somebody, those types of things? So we are looking at that. Chief Thorne and his folks are working real hard on training regimes that focus on that high rise component and those laboratories specifically. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. It is, and my guess is that you have a map of which building does what.
We do, and this is part of, this ties in with the Office of Environmental Health through the county. They're the kind of the monitor for all that. They approve and make sure that all the permitting is done, and they identify what amounts of which chemicals are stored where and what that looks like. And that, you know, that there has to be certain protections built in based on what chemicals you have and how much you have. So that's where that process comes from. And then they, of course, notify us, and we do pre-planning where we can't visit all of them. But Chief Thorne and his crews try to get out a few times a year to visit some of these larger facilities. And we've participated with Gilead in particular on some exercises where we, you know, mocked up a drill in one of their laboratories on a high level floor and responded and walked through that. So it changes a lot too. Some of the bigger ones, the Gileads and, you know, and the larger companies like that, they're pretty sound and we know where they are and all that. But some of the mom and pop stuff are coming and going quite a bit. So all of a sudden they will pop up and we're unaware of it. So we're doing working hard to make sure we stay in front of where they are, but it is a high priority for us.
So two other questions, well, one comment and one question is that I've had people concerned about the monitoring, that it's not happening often enough. And the other is with the increased cost, are there ways to pass it on to the actual developer that's increasing the life science districts?
So the monitoring, as far as
Monitoring.
air monitoring around their facilities, again, that's an environmental health one. We just do the emergency response.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to step on Wayman and his folks. Might be a question for them on what they do there, and whether there's the possibility some impact fees or things like that. I'm not sure what they have calculated in there.
Okay, thank you.
Impact fees are one-time funds, right? They wouldn't be able to.
Usually, typically, yeah. Typically, but it could be built into a permitting fee. That's where I would see something like that. But again, I don't want to step on Wayman's feet. Those are.
Yeah, you gotta love that name, Wayman Wong.
Oh,
But I was on a serious note gonna say, maybe we could set up a meeting with the vice mayor and Raymond Wong and whomever to talk. It's an interesting question that she brings up. I'd be curious about that. And we could talk to, what's that director's name?
Heather Fulton.
Heather Forche, yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Thank you.
I don't have anything, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for the presentation.
Excellent. I think I'm your next item too.
Okay. Okay, well, feel free.
The next item is referencing the battalion chief liaison officer that the county supports that stays in DEM, is assigned to DEM. The county chief requested this, I don't know how long ago, and we've been doing it for many, many years.
2014.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've had quite a few folks in there. Currently, Tony Blackman is the battalion chief. It's in there. And he works for San Mateo Consolidated. So we have a contract with the county to support that. And the way it's set up currently is that 75% of the total cost of his position is paid by the county to San Mateo Consolidated to offset the cost for us. We do use him for a few odds and ends around our shop to offset that 25%. But typically he's 75% assigned to DEM and does work with Don and his crew.
He stepped in for when we were short on coordinators and spent a week here almost one time helping us out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can tell you for a fact that Tony is he's a really solid guy and he's enjoying what he's doing, but this is about the position, right? And the importance of that position. The county chiefs believe it's an important position. We support it. We as the county chiefs would like to see it continue. And currently the contract is with us. It goes through the end of this fiscal year. So we're requesting a 2-year contract moving from July 1 of this year. 3-year for Tony, for that position to be kept with San Mateo Consolidated, and we'll provide that position individual. And Don and I, again, we looked at those numbers. I was able to reduce the cost by 11.5%. So it helped all of us out. I think it made more sense and it's a fair thing to do. And we support that.
Sounds good. Questions?
Never fight anything that's a reduction.
Thank you for the presentation.
Great.
Okay. Report outs, item 10, report outs from committee members. Item 11 is adjournment information. I'm not sure what that means, but we're about to adjourn.
Information on adjournment.
And the next meeting date and time, TBD, to be determined,
That's
right?
for
Okay,
the main council.
all right. So thank you everybody for attending, appreciate it. All the time and energy, and Rosalinda, thank you for all the paper.
Mr. Brown, do you need to have a motion to adjourn?
I think we're okay.
Yeah, we're okay.
Usually adjourn meetings without a motion.
Yeah.
If we needed that, we might never end.